Welcome to Science for Sleepy Minds. I'm very glad you're here, in whatever shape this night has brought you. Maybe you're tired in the simple way, the kind of tired that feels like a blanket already waiting. Or maybe you're tired and still buzzing with thoughts that keep walking in circles even when your body is asking for rest. Either way, you don't have to solve anything right now. You can just be here, breathing, listening, letting the weight of the day become a little less heavy. Tonight, we're going to explore something big, but we'll hold it gently. The real challenges of leaving Earth forever, not as a dramatic story and not as a list of worries, more like a slow, calm walk through a quiet museum where each exhibit is a simple human need: air, water, warmth, safety, community, meaning. We'll take our time, we'll keep it soft, and we'll make room for the most important thing, which is your rest. And if you fall asleep along the way, that's perfect. You don't have to stay awake for the whole journey. You don't have to remember everything. You can let the words pass through you like a slow tide, leaving behind only a sense of calm. Nothing here will demand anything from you. So whenever you're ready, you can let your body settle a little more deeply into whatever is supporting you. The mattress beneath you, the pillow under your head, the gentle gravity that for now is still doing its quiet work holding you down in the best way, keeping you safe and still. There's something soothing about that, isn't there? The idea that you're allowed to be heavy, that you're allowed to rest. Before we begin, just a small reminder of what this time is for. This is Relaxation First Science. It's learning the way you might watch starlight through a window, without trying to count the stars. The information can arrive softly. Whether or not you pay close attention, your mind can drift, your thoughts can wander. If your attention fades, you don't need to pull it back with effort. You can simply come back whenever you happen to notice, the way you might notice your breath again after a daydream. And if you'd like to help this channel reach more sleepy minds, you can like the video or subscribe, only if it feels easy. And if it doesn't, that's completely fine too. Either way, you're already doing the main thing, which is resting. Now let's make the room inside your mind a little quieter. Take a slow inhale, as if you're gently smoothing a wrinkle from a sheet, not forcing anything, just a steady, patient breath, and then a longer exhale like letting a small sigh slip out through a slightly open door. Again, in your own rhythm, you can breathe in and breathe out, letting the out-breath be a little longer, a little softer, as if it's carrying some of the day away with it. If it helps, you can imagine your breathing as a calm tide. The tide arrives, cool and smooth, no hurry at all. Then it returns, leaving the shore a little more even than before. Arriving, leaving, arriving again. Each breath making a quiet promise that you can begin again. Now, without needing to move much, you can scan your body with a gentle kind of curiosity. Not looking for problems, just noticing what's there. Start at your forehead. If there's any tightness there, you can let it soften, not all at once, just a small easing. Like loosening a knot one strand at a time, let your eyebrows relax. Let the space behind your eyes feel darker, quieter, deeper, and your jaw. Many people carry the whole day there ready, a clenched fist they forgot they were making. If you notice your teeth touching, you can let them separate slightly. Let your tongue rest. Let your mouth become still. Now your shoulders. Imagine you're setting something down, like placing a bag by the doorway, finally letting your arms be empty. Let your shoulders drop a millimeter. Or a little more if your body wants it. Your chest can soften too, not collapsing, just loosening. Making space for breath. Your hands. If your fingers are curled, you can let them uncurl. If they feel restless, you can give them permission to be heavy. Resting hands have a quiet wisdom, as if they know there's nothing to do right now. Your belly. It can rise and fall without being judged. It can simply be. The body knows how to breathe, even if the mind forgets. Your hips, your thighs, your knees, your calves. Let them sink. Let them be held. And finally, your feet. If your feet feel tense, you can imagine warmth flowing into them like a soft heater in winter, or like a sunbeam on a quiet floor. The kind of warmth that doesn't demand attention, it just comforts. All of you can settle now little by little. And any thoughts that show up can be allowed to pass by. You don't have to chase them. You don't have to answer them. A thought can be like a cloud crossing the moon. It changes the light for a moment, and then it moves on. If it helps, you can picture a warm light dimming in a quiet room, not snapping off, just slowly lowering. The corners of the room becoming gentle, the day growing smaller in the distance. Or imagine yourself drifting in calm water, supported, buoyant, unhurried. No struggle, no need to swim, just floating. Or picture a quiet wave smoothing sand again and again, making the surface more even with each pass. That can be your mind tonight, smoothed, softened, made simple. Now with your body more settled, let's open a scene together, like a soft doorway. Imagine it's night. Perhaps you're near an observatory or standing on a rooftop or by an open window. The air is cool, clean. There's a faint hum somewhere far away, like the world in the distance quietly breathing in its sleep. Maybe you hear a soft wind, maybe just the inner hush of nighttime, that gentle quiet that feels different from daytime silence. Above you, the sky is wide and patient. Stars are scattered across it like calm punctuation marks in a long sentence. Not shouting, just present, patient, steady. If you imagine a telescope, it's standing there like a quiet companion pointing upward with no urgency. Or maybe you're simply looking with your eyes, and that's enough. The sky doesn't ask for equipment, it doesn't ask for expertise, it just offers itself. And in that sky, Earth is not a speck. Earth is the place your entire body understands. Even if you've never studied science, your cells have been studying Earth forever, in their own way. In every breath, in every sip of water, in every heartbeat. Earth is not only home in the emotional sense, it's also a life support planet. A place that quietly does work for us every second so continuously that we barely notice. It mixes the air to the right proportions. It keeps pressure around us so our lungs can do their gentle exchange. It circles water through sky and soil, through rivers and roots, through clouds and rain. It wraps us in warmth and it shields us, and it offers us a steady rhythm of day and night. So here's a soft question, one we can carry like a smooth stone in a pocket. If we ever leave Earth forever, what invisible gifts would we need to rebuild, piece by piece, somewhere else? And another gentle promise, before we go deeper. Some of these challenges can sound intense when they are listed quickly in a loud voice. But we won't do that tonight. We'll move slowly. We'll keep context. We'll keep comfort. We'll treat each idea as something you can hold lightly, and if you get sleepy, you can let it fall away. Let's begin with the simplest truth, the one that's almost too ordinary to notice. Right now, you are breathing without doing anything at all. You aren't mixing gases, you aren't checking pressure, you aren't monitoring humidity, you aren't measuring carbon dioxide in the room and adjusting valves. You're simply breathing, and the world is set up in a way that makes that possible. Think of how miraculous that is. but think of it gently without turning it into a big performance. You inhale, and your lungs fill with air that happens to contain enough oxygen for your blood to carry it. You exhale, and carbon dioxide leaves you. You do this all day, all night, with barely a thought. Most of the time, the only reason you notice your breath is because you're tired or anxious or paying attention on purpose. Earth makes breathing easy. That's a strange sentence, isn't it? Earth makes breathing easy. But it's true. The atmosphere is like an invisible ocean you live inside, a sea of gas. And it has a certain thickness, a certain pressure that your body has adapted to over millions of years. It presses in on you gently from all sides, and that pressure is part of what allows your lungs to work the way they do. The air itself is a particular recipe, mostly nitrogen, some oxygen, a bit of argon, a whisper of carbon dioxide, and a scatter of other trace gases. Your body has evolved in this recipe like a fish evolved in water, so natural that you don't think of it as a system at all. And yet it is a system, a huge one, a planet-sized one. When you breathe in tonight, you can imagine that oxygen has travelled a long road. Perhaps it was released by tiny ocean plants, or by leaves in a forest. Perhaps it has been in the air for a while, mixed and carried by winds you never felt. It arrives without requiring your permission, without requiring your labour, and when you breathe out, what you exhale will also continue its journey. Carbon dioxide will drift, mix, be used by plants, dissolve into oceans, be exchanged again. Even your breath participates in a patient planetary loop. We rarely notice how effortless really is. So the first challenge of leaving Earth forever is not the rocket, not the stars. It's realizing just how much support you've been receiving all along and how quietly. Earth offers layers of protection too. You could imagine them like nested blankets around the planet. There is the atmosphere, which is not only air, but also a place where incoming space rocks often burn up, where heat can be held, where weather makes its slow looping patterns. There is the magnetic field, which is like a gentle, invisible umbrella that deflects many charged particles from the sun. It's a quiet guardian you never see. There are the oceans, vast and heavy, holding heat, sharing it, making the planet more stable than it might otherwise be. There is the soil, complex and alive, making food possible, and within that soil are countless organisms doing countless small jobs, making a nutrient cycle, turning decay into fertility, keeping the whole system humming. All of this is part of what you inherit simply by being born here. That's what makes the phrase leaving Earth forever so interesting, because leaving forever doesn't mean leaving just a place. It means leaving an entire protective machine and then building a small version of it yourself. In space, there is no atmosphere waiting outside your door. No pressure, no oxygen, no gentle buffering. The outside is silent and thin and cold in the way emptiness is cold. Not scary, just different. Completely different rules. So if you want to live away from Earth even for a short while, you must build your own little pocket of Earthness. A habitat, a ship, a station, a home made of walls and seals and careful systems. And if you want to live away from Earth forever, then that little pocket must do something profound. It must become not just a shelter, but a world in miniature. It has to remember to keep breathing all the time. What would it feel like, I wonder, to live inside a human-made bubble that must never forget to keep breathing? Would it feel like living inside a lantern, where the flame is kept alive by steady hands? Would it feel like living inside a tiny floating greenhouse, where every leaf matters? Would it make you more aware of your own life in a gentle way? Or would it fade into routine, becoming ordinary, the way even miracles can become ordinary when they happen every day? Earth, by contrast, is a slow, patient machine that runs on sunlight and time. Sunlight arrives and plants turn it into chemical energy. Air and water and minerals become food. The planet spins, making day and night. The seasons shift slowly. And life fits into that rhythm like a lullaby it has always known. It's peaceful to think about, isn't it? A planet turning in the dark, holding oceans, holding clouds, holding forests, holding you. If you're feeling sleepy now, Zuzi, you can let that image be enough. You don't need to hold on to the details. You can let the thought be simple. Earth is doing so much for you. Earth has always been doing so much for you, and now, with that foundation, we can move toward the next challenge. The first hard step in a very literal sense. Getting away. You can keep your eyes closed. You can keep your body still. This is concept science, bedtime science, the kind that doesn't require diagrams, just gentle images and soft understanding. Think about lifting something heavy, something real and familiar. A bag of groceries, a suitcase, a sleeping child. When you lift, you feel gravity. You feel the constant pull of Earth asking that object to stay down. Your muscles must work to change that. Gravity is a quiet, constant hug. It holds your body against the bed right now. It's part of why you feel supported, but it is also the reason leaving Earth takes so much energy. To go up is not just to change location, it's to climb out of a gravity well, a kind of invisible valley in the fabric of space. That valley is deep, not in a frightening way, just in an energetic way. To leave, you must spend energy like you spend effort climbing a steep hill. Only this hill is planet-shaped. It can help to picture it gently. Earth is like a smooth round bowl, and everything naturally settles into the bottom. Launching a spacecraft is like throwing a small pebble out of that bowl, not just tossing it a few inches, but tossing it hard enough that it doesn't roll back down. Why does it take so much? Because you're not only lifting against gravity, you're also trying to reach a speed where you keep missing the ground as you fall. That's what orbit is, in a calm and simple way. Falling, but falling sideways so fast that the curve of the planet always drops away beneath you. It's like taking a running leap and never landing because the ground curves away. To do that, you need speed, and to gain speed, you need energy. And to make that energy quickly, you usually need a rocket. Rockets are often explained with so much excitement that the meaning gets lost. So let's make it quiet. A rocket is, at its heart, a way of throwing mass away on purpose, so the rest of you moves in the opposite direction. It's like standing on ice and tossing a heavy ball. When the ball flies forward, you slide backward. In space, in the emptiness, the principle is the same. If you push something away from you, you move the other way. So rockets carry fuel and oxidizer, a chemical pairing that can release energy rapidly. They burn, they expand hot gas, they throw that gas out the back at high speed, and that push moves the rocket forward. But here's the tricky part, and it's one of the reasons leaving Earth is such a challenge. Fuel has mass. If you want to carry fuel, you have to lift the fuel too. And if you carry more fuel, you need even more fuel to lift that extra fuel. It's a strange spiral, like trying to pack snacks for a hike where the snacks make your backpack heavier, so you need more snacks to carry the extra weight, which makes it heavier again. Not exactly like that, but the feeling is similar. A compounding problem. That's why rockets often look like tall, stacked candles. That's why they shed parts as they go. Staging is a clever way to lighten the load. You use one stage to do part of the job, then you let that empty stage go, so you're not carrying the dead weight any longer. Like shedding layers of clothing for a long walk as the sun warms the day. And there's something quietly beautiful in that idea. A journey that requires letting go. A design that assumes release and makes room for it. If you imagine a rocket launch for a moment, keep it soft, not loud and not harsh. In this bedtime version, it's more like a controlled brightness against a dark sky, a brief contained flame, a bright needle of light rising steadily, the way a lantern might lift on warm air. And then, as the rocket climbs higher, the air grows thinner. The roar you might imagine becomes muted, then distant, then gone. The atmosphere falls away, the sky darkens, and eventually there is that hush, that quiet that space is known for. Not a scary quiet, a deep quiet, like standing in a snowy field at night when sound feels absorbed. The first challenge of leaving Earth is, in a sense, paying the energy ticket to get free of the ground. And if you think about forever, that ticket isn't just one purchase, it's an ongoing cost. Every kilogram you want to bring with you has to be lifted. Every tool, every panel, every litre of water, every bite of food. Getting away is expensive in energy, and that shapes everything that follows. But tonight, you don't need to follow every calculation. You can let the idea be round and smooth. Earth holds you closely. Leaving means spending energy to loosen that hold, and once you've loosened it, once you're floating in the hush, then the next challenge becomes clear. You must bring Earth with you. Not the whole planet, of course, just the useful parts. The parts your body cannot do without. Air, water, a stable little climate, a fragile bubble. Imagine you have a glass of water beside you. You don't have to actually picture the glass perfectly. Just the idea of it is enough. Clear, cool, ordinary. Water that you can drink without thinking too much. On Earth, water is everywhere. It moves through taps and pipes. It falls from clouds, it rests in rivers, it hides in soil. You can be thirsty and then, with a few steps, you can drink. That's not true everywhere on Earth, of course, but the planet itself holds an abundance of water in a way that makes life possible. In space, water is precious in a new way. Air is also precious in a new way. Because on Earth, the environment is continuous. If you open a window, air rushes in. If you spill water, it can evaporate, soak, flow, and still there will be more. The planet is large. The systems are vast. There is room for mistakes. In a spacecraft or a habitat, everything is small. Everything is counted, and the environment is not continuous. It is contained. A closed-loop system is one way humans try to meet that challenge. The phrase sounds technical, but the idea is comforting because it's also natural. A closed loop means you keep using what you have, carefully, endlessly. You don't treat air or water as something you use once and throw away. You treat them as something more like a cycle, like the water cycle on Earth, shrunk down and brought inside, and there's something soothing about cycles, isn't there? Cycles mean continuity. They mean you can keep going without needing an endless supply from outside. They mean that loss is not the only direction. Things can return. So how does life support work? In a gentle bedtime version. First, oxygen. You need it in the air, not too little, not too much. On a ship, oxygen can be stored in tanks, but for long-term living you want a way to generate it to make it steadily. One method is to split water molecules using electricity into hydrogen and oxygen. The oxygen goes into the air, and the hydrogen can be used in other processes. It's chemistry doing a quiet job like a hidden engine. Then carbon dioxide, the gas you exhale. In a sealed habitat, carbon dioxide builds up unless you remove it. So you need scrubbers, filters, materials that capture CO2. Systems that pull it out of the air. Some approaches store it. Some try to recycle it. Some use plants to help, turning carbon dioxide back into oxygen the slow-living way. Humidity matters too. Too dry and your body dries out. Too humid and everything feels clammy. And mold becomes a concern, so the air must be managed like a gentle indoor weather. Not storms, but a stable climate. Temperature matters. On Earth, you step into shade or sunlight, you add a blanket, you open a door. In a habitat, temperature control is part of the life support system. Heat must be moved around. Excess heat must be released. Cold must be prevented. The home becomes a careful balance of warmth and cooling like a well-tended room. And then there are trace contaminants. Tiny chemicals released from materials, from plastics, from cleaning products, from human life itself. In a small sealed space, even small things accumulate. So life support also becomes a kind of invisible housekeeping. Filters, charcoal beds, careful monitoring, the quiet work of keeping the air clean. It's almost like tending an invisible garden of chemistry. A garden where the plants are molecules and the soil is airflow, and everything depends on patient balance. Water, too, becomes a cycle. On Earth, you can forget how cyclical water is, because the cycle is enormous. Evaporation lifts water into the sky. Clouds move it. Rain returns it. Rivers guide it. Soil filters it. Plants drink it. Animals drink it. The ocean holds most of it. It's all continuous. In a ship, you rebuild that cycle in miniature. Water you use is collected and treated. It's filtered, cleaned, purified. It becomes drinkable again. Not in a gross way, not in a way you need to linger on, just in the way nature already does it. Nature has always been recycling water. When you drink a glass of water on Earth, that water has likely been through countless forms before it reached you. Rain, river, leaf, cloud, snow, stream, time. So in a habitat, water recycling is like bringing a little piece of the rain cycle indoors. A quiet indoor weather that works for you. And because the bubble is fragile, redundancy matters. Redundancy is a calming word when you think about it in the right way. It means backup. It means you don't rely on a single thread to hold the whole tapestry. You have another thread and another. The life support systems often have backups, extra processors, spare parts, alternative pathways. If one system fails, another can take over. There are checklists, routines, monitoring, not as a source of anxiety, but as a source of steady reliability. Routine in this context is a kind of safety. It's like locking the door at night, not because you expect danger, but because the ritual itself provides reassurance. A simple action that says, I have done what I can, and now I can rest. And that brings us to a quiet reflection. Can routine be its own kind of peace when routine keeps you alive? You might imagine a habitat as a small lantern in a vast dark. Not bright because of drama, but bright because of steady care. The light is warm, the walls are strong. Inside there is air, there is water, there is warmth. There is a gentle hum of equipment doing its work, like a lullaby you can almost forget is there. Outside there is silence, inside there is life. And if you're listening to this while sleepy, you can let that lantern image become a soothing one. A small, safe room floating under stars held together by careful design and patient attention. You don't need to build it tonight. You don't need to solve its engineering. You can simply appreciate what it represents. A choice to make life possible, even where life does not happen naturally. And somewhere in that appreciation, you might feel a softness in your chest, the kind that comes from realizing how capable humans can be when they work gently and thoughtfully, not in a rush. If you're drifting now, it's okay. If your mind is wandering, it's okay. You can let the details blur, but hold on to one simple truth, like a slow, steady heartbeat. Leaving Earth forever is not one act, it's many acts of care. And we have only begun, because beyond the air and water, beyond the fragile bubble, there is the human body itself, and how it changes when the rules change. There is the question of how muscles and bones respond when weight becomes optional. There is the quiet challenge of keeping a sense of rhythm when day and night are no longer given by a sky outside the window. But we don't need to hurry there. We can approach it the way you approach sleep. Gradually, gently, by soft degrees. So for now, as you rest, you can return to your own breath. Inhale as if the air is arriving like a calm tide. Exhale as if you're letting the day flow out quietly without needing to name it. You're here, you're safe, you don't have to remember everything. And in the next gentle stretch of our journey, we'll move from the bubble around a habitat to the living world inside it. The body, the mind, the slow adaptations that make forever feel less like a cliff and more like a direction. For now, just let the words soften at the edges, like starlight seen through sleepy eyes. Let gravity hold you. Let the bed support you. Let the night be wide and patient and kind. If you're still awake, you can let your body settle again, just for a moment. Feel the bed beneath you, steady and uncomplicated. Feel how gravity is still here, doing its quiet work, holding you in place so you don't have to. Let your shoulders soften a little more. Let your jaw rest. And let your breathing find its own slow rhythm, like a small lantern flame that stays lit without effort. You don't need to remember what we've already said. You don't need to keep track. You can simply rejoin the stream wherever you are, letting the words float past like calm water. We've been talking about the idea of leaving Earth forever, and how much of Earth's support we would have to rebuild in miniature. A small pocket of air, a careful cycle of water, a gentle, steady climate inside a fragile bubble. And now, we can bring our attention to something even more intimate than walls and filters. Your body, the body you're resting in right now. It's easy to forget, when you're on Earth, just how thoroughly your body is shaped by one constant assumption: weight. Every movement you have ever made has been a conversation with gravity. Even lying still is a kind of agreement. Your muscles relax because the bed holds you up. Your bones bear the quiet, patient load of your structure. Your inner ear knows which way is down. Your blood circulates in a system that expects a certain amount of pull. So when people talk about space, one of the first things they mention is floating. And it can sound playful, like a dream. And it can be dreamlike, yes. But it's also a change of rules. And the body responds to rules the way it always has, not with judgment, not with fear, just with adaptation. Think about something familiar first, something small and gentle. Think about how your body changes with habits. If you walk more often, your legs learn that pattern. If you sit for long hours, your hips and back learn that pattern too. If you practice an instrument, your fingers grow more skilled, almost without you noticing. If you stop using a muscle, it slowly becomes less ready, because the body is efficient. It doesn't like to spend energy maintaining things it doesn't need. This is not a flaw, it's a kind of kindness. The body is always trying to help you. It is always responding to the life you are living. So in microgravity, where weight is no longer pressing down in the same way, the body keeps helping, but it helps according to the new environment. Muscles don't have to fight gravity to hold you upright. Bones don't have to resist your full weight with every step. And because they are no longer being asked to do those particular jobs all day, every day, they begin to change gently, gradually, like a houseplant growing toward a new window. Muscles can lose strength if they aren't used. Bones can lose density if they aren't loaded. The body, always efficient, quietly arranges its budget. It invests less in what seems unnecessary. You can think of it as the body asking very calmly, do we still need this much support beam, this much scaffolding for a world where we float? And because we know the body asks that question, we can answer it. Not with panic, with routine, with thoughtful countermeasures. Exercise in space becomes something more than fitness. It becomes a daily ritual of preservation, a way of reminding the body gently what kind of strength will still be needed. And there's something soothing about imagining that. A person in a small warm habitat moving slowly through stretches, pushing against resistance, pedaling on a machine that creates the feeling of effort. Not rushed, not forced, just consistent, like making tea each evening, like tidying a room, like any routine that says, I am taking care of myself. If you let your mind hold a picture, you might imagine floating exercise that looks almost like underwater yoga. A slow bend, a gentle reach, a careful pull against elastic bands or a resistance device. Light filtering in through a small window, if there is one. The quiet hum of life support in the background, steady and comforting. And you might notice how non-dramatic it is, how the challenge of microgravity is not a sudden catastrophe, but a long conversation between body and environment, a conversation that can be guided. Microgravity also changes fluids in the body. On Earth, gravity helps pull fluids down toward the legs. In space, that pull is reduced, and fluids redistribute more evenly. People can feel puffy-faced at first, and their legs can look slimmer, simply because the usual downward tug isn't there. It's a strange image, but we can hold it gently. Not as something alarming, but as another example of how quickly your body responds to its world. And your inner ear, the system that helps you balance, also has to learn new cues. On Earth, the balance organs expect a certain relationship between motion and gravity. In microgravity, the signals are unfamiliar. At first, this can lead to discomfort. But adaptation happens. The brain learns. New norms are formed. That's one of the quiet themes of this whole topic, isn't it? Humans adjust. Not instantly, not perfectly, but steadily. And even sleep changes. On Earth, day and night are strong cues. Light in the morning, darkness at night. The planet turning like a slow metronome. But in orbit, you can pass through sunrise and sunset many times in a single day depending on your path, so space habitats often bring their own rhythm. Artificial lighting that brightens and dims in a gentle pattern. Routines that create morning and evening. A human-made cycle that helps the body feel time in a calm way. You can think of it like having a soft lamp by your bedside that you dim each night. Your body learns that dimming means rest is coming. The light becomes a cue, a tiny daily sunset. And this leads us to a very tender question, one you don't have to answer. If up and down fade, what stays steady inside you? When the body has to redefine its sense of orientation, what becomes your anchor? For many people, the anchor is routine. Breath, food, sleep, movement, the feeling of community, the familiar sound of your environment, the simple repetition of care. Even here on Earth, the same is true. When life feels uncertain, your nervous system often finds comfort in small rituals. A warm drink, a shower, a favourite blanket, the same song, the same gentle words. So in space, in a floating home, you build those anchors on purpose, you make steadiness. And we can pause here with that thought and let it soothe rather than challenge. You don't need to remember the physiology. You can let it dissolve into a simple idea. Your body is wise, it listens, it adapts. And if it needs guidance, you can offer guidance through calm, repeated care. Now there's another part of the space environment that people sometimes talk about with a tense voice. Tonight, we won't use that voice. We'll keep it soft, practical, and grounded. It's the invisible weather of space, radiation. That word can sound sharp, because it's often used in stories that want you to feel afraid. But in reality, the way we approach it is more like the way you approach sunlight on a bright day. You don't panic at the sun, you respect it, you use shade, you wear protection, you plan your time. That's the tone we'll use here. On Earth, you're protected by layers you don't see. The atmosphere above you absorbs and blocks many types of energetic particles. The magnetic field guides charged particles around the planet, and Earth's bulk itself is a kind of shelter. We live at the bottom of a very thick protective stack. When you leave Earth, you step out from under some of those layers, and the environment is more exposed. Not hostile in a personal way, not angry or dramatic, just more direct. Some of the radiation in space comes from the sun. Some comes from beyond our solar system, from energetic events far away. Cosmic rays moving through the galaxy like tiny fast travelers. You don't need to picture these rays as attacks. It's gentler to picture them as a kind of drizzle you can't see. Most of the time it's light. Sometimes it can be heavier. And because it's natural, we don't take it personally, we just prepare. Preparation means monitoring, knowing what the sun is doing, watching for changes, planning activities and sheltering strategies. It means designing habitats with layered protection. In a spaceship or a station, shielding can come from materials in the walls. Some materials are better than others. Water can be helpful as part of shielding, which is interesting in a quiet way, because you need water anyway, and it can serve more than one purpose. Supplies, storage, and structure can be arranged thoughtfully, like furniture in a room that also helps muffle sound. The goal is not to make space feel frightening. The goal is to make it feel manageable. Designing for radiation is like designing a house for weather. If you live where it rains, you build a roof. If you live where it's cold, you insulate. If you live where it's sunny, you add shade. None of that is panic, it's just wisdom. And in space, there's a concept sometimes called a storm shelter. Again, the name can sound dramatic, but you can imagine it as a quiet inner room, a place with extra shielding, a more protected nook inside the habitat. If monitoring suggests a period of higher exposure, people can spend time there, calmly, with supplies and comfort. In our bedtime imagination, it's a softly lit small room with thick walls, not claustrophobic but cozy, like the safest corner of a ship, a place designed for peace. You might even picture it like a reading nook, a small space with a seat, a blanket, a few personal items, a place where you can wait without feeling like you're waiting, a place where time can pass kindly, and there's another layer of protection that's easy to forget. Timing. The sun has cycles. It has quieter times and more active times. Mission planners pay attention to that, like gardeners paying attention to seasons. You choose when to travel, you plan, you reduce risk with knowledge and patience. So when we talk about radiation as a challenge of leaving Earth, we can hold it as a planning challenge, not a doom story, a problem humans can approach with careful design, monitoring and layered safety, and that thought can be surprisingly comforting. Because it reminds you that safety is often not a single wall. It's a collection of small choices. It's redundancy again, it's layered blankets, it's habits and systems. It's the quiet craft of building a life that can continue. Which leads to a gentle question that is more emotional than technical. What does it mean to feel safe in a place where safety is something you build deliberately? On Earth, safety often feels invisible. You don't think about the atmosphere doing its job. You don't think about the magnetic field. You don't think about the way the planet itself shields you. In a habitat, safety is more present. It's designed, it's maintained, it's checked, it's learned. And yet that doesn't have to feel stressful. It can feel like living in a well-made home where you trust the locks, trust the roof, trust the warmth. You don't think about them constantly, but you know they're there. And because you know you can relax, that's a beautiful aim for any environment on Earth or away from it, to build systems so reliable that the mind can rest. As you listen now, you can let that idea apply to you, here, tonight. Your body has systems. Your room has systems. Your home has walls and doors and familiar corners. You don't have to manage all of it at once. You can trust what is already holding you. You can let your mind soften into that trust. And if your mind tries to get busy, tries to problem solve space habitats or cosmic travel, you can remind it gently that you are safe where you are. That this is only a story you're listening to, a calm exploration, and you can let it blur whenever you want. Take another slow breath in and let it out, long and easy. If you notice any lingering tension, you can imagine it draining out of you like warmth leaving a cup as it cools, slowly, without effort, just time doing what time does. Now, we've moved through 2 more pieces of the puzzle: how the body adapts to microgravity, and how people protect themselves from the invisible weather outside their walls. And as we do this, you might notice a theme repeating like a lullaby. Leaving Earth forever is not one heroic moment. It is 1,000 quiet moments of care. It is routines for bones and muscles. It is lighting patterns that create gentle mornings. It is inner rooms built for extra safety. It is thoughtful timing. It is designing a life that can be lived calmly, not just survived. And after the body and the walls, there's one more part of any forever that might be the most human of all: the mind. And the small group of people you live among. Because even if the air is clean, even if the water is recycled, even if the habitat is warm and well shielded, a person still needs something softer. A sense of belonging, a sense of meaning, a sense that they are not alone inside their own thoughts. You might already know that feeling in small ways. Even on Earth, you can be surrounded by others and still feel distant, or you can be alone and feel peacefully held. Distance isn't only measured in kilometers, sometimes it's measured in familiarity, in routine, in connection. So imagine very gently what it might feel like to be far from home, not for a week, not for months, but for a long stretch of time. Maybe you've moved cities before. Maybe you've travelled somewhere new and felt that strange mix of freedom and homesickness. Maybe you've heard an old song and felt a tug inside your chest, a sudden memory of a room you used to live in, a street you used to walk down. Those feelings are normal. They are the mind's way of saying I am attached, I belong, I remember. And if you ever left Earth forever, you wouldn't only be carrying equipment and supplies, you'd be carrying a whole world of memories, a familiar sky, the smell of rain, the sound of wind in trees. Even if you've never spent much time in nature, your body knows the Earth in subtle ways. The rhythm of day, the weight of your limbs, the way sound travels through air, the way silence feels different when it's full of living things. So the challenge of leaving is also the challenge of building a new kind of home inside the mind. But we don't need to open that door all the way tonight. We can simply rest near it, like standing in a hallway with a soft light on. For now, let your breath be your anchor, let the bed be your planet, let gravity be a gentle hand. And if you're still awake, we'll continue from here, moving slowly into the quiet science of togetherness, of routines that soothe the mind, of small communities in small habitats, and how the human heart learns to create sunrise even when the sky outside is always dark. For the moment, you can simply drift. You are safe. You don't need to remember, and you can let sleep arrive in its own time, like a slow, kind visitor who knows the way. If you're still awake, you can settle again, just the smallest amount. Let the pillow hold the back of your head. Let your shoulders be heavy, as if the bed is gently collecting them. And if your thoughts are moving around, that's fine. You don't have to chase them. You can let them drift like slow clouds while your breathing continues underneath, steady and quiet. Inhale, as if the air is arriving to meet you. Exhale, as if you're letting something soften without even naming what it is. We've been moving through the practical side of leaving Earth forever. The energy it takes to get away, the careful bubble of air and water, the body adapting to a world where down is no longer so insistent. The art of protection from invisible space weather, approached with the same calm respect you'd bring to sunlight, shade and shelter. And now, we come to a kind of gravity that doesn't show up in equations. Psychological gravity, the pull of home, the weight of togetherness, the need for meaning that doesn't evaporate just because you're far from Earth. Even on Earth, you've probably felt it. You can be safe, fed, warm, and still feel unsettled. Because a person isn't only a body. A person is also a mind that tells stories, a heart that forms attachments, a nervous system that calms when it senses belonging. So when we imagine leaving Earth forever, we have to imagine the interior world as carefully as the exterior systems. The emotional climate inside a habitat, the social weather inside a small community, the quiet ways people soothe each other without even noticing they are doing it. It can help to start with something familiar. Think of being far from home in everyday life. Maybe you've travelled and slept in a room that wasn't yours, the bed a little too firm or too soft, the light from the street leaking around curtains, the air smelling faintly different. Even if nothing is wrong, your body notices, your mind notices. There's a subtle scanning, a gentle alertness, as if part of you is still asking, "Where am I?" Or maybe you've moved to a new place and for a while you didn't know the local rhythms. You didn't know which corner store stayed open late. You didn't know what the evening sounded like. And slowly over time it became familiar. The unfamiliar became ordinary, and the ordinary became comforting. That's how minds work. They learn safety through repetition, through predictability, through gentle proof. Now imagine that process happening in a small habitat far away, where outside is not a place you stroll in but a place you visit with equipment and planning. Imagine a home where the walls are not just privacy, but life itself. A home where the hum of air circulation is not background noise, but a quiet companion. At first, that could feel strange. Not scary, just strange. And then, just like any place, it could become normal. A new normal held together by routine. But there are particular challenges when a group of people lives in a small enclosed environment for a long time. On Earth, if you need space, you can often find it. You can take a walk. You can step into another room. You can go outside and let the sky stretch your thoughts. You can change your scenery without much effort. In a habitat, scenery is limited, and that means small things matter more. Privacy becomes precious. Sound becomes important. Light becomes important. Small habits become either soothing or irritating depending on how they're managed. So one gentle challenge of leaving Earth forever is designing a life where people can have both togetherness and separation, both community and quiet, both shared purpose and personal space. You might picture it like a musical piece. If every instrument plays all the time, the sound becomes tiring even if the melody is good. The ear needs rests, the mind needs rests. Silence becomes part of the harmony. So in an off-Earth home, quiet corners aren't a luxury. They're a form of care. A small personal nook, even if it's just a sleeping pod with a curtain. A place where your belongings live. A place where your mind can exhale without being witnessed. A place where you can be messy inside without having to translate yourself into social language. And if you think about it, that is true on Earth too. You don't only need people. You also need the permission to be alone, to reset, to return to yourself. Noise too becomes something you design around. Life support fans, pumps, machines. Even in our bedtime imagination, that hum can be comforting, like white noise. But too much noise, unpredictable noise, sharp noise, can wear on the nervous system. So habitats are designed with acoustics in mind, dampening vibration, reducing harsh frequencies, giving the ears a chance to relax. Light is another quiet tool. On Earth, light changes gradually. Morning brightening, evening dimming. Shadows move, the sky shifts colour, the body learns time through the eyes. In a habitat, you can recreate that rhythm as a kindness to the brain. Gentle lighting schedules, warm evening tones, softer mornings, a manufactured sunrise that isn't dramatic, just reliable. And then there's the emotional environment among the people. If you've ever lived with someone, you know that even a loving relationship can be tested by constant proximity. Small misunderstandings can grow when there's nowhere to step away and cool down. Tiny annoyances can repeat like a drip, drip, drip until the mind becomes tender. So the social challenge isn't about avoiding conflict entirely. Conflict is normal. The challenge is learning how to repair. Repair is a quiet skill. It's the ability to say, earlier, I felt overwhelmed. It's the ability to listen without preparing a defense. It's the ability to take a breath and remember that the other person is also tired, also human, also trying. Conflict resolution in a long-term habitat is less like a courtroom and more like weather management. You notice when pressure is building. You adjust. You vent gently before a storm forms. You create routines that prevent small discomforts from accumulating into something heavy. And routines can be surprisingly soft. Shared meals, for example. Food is not only fuel. Food is story. Food is culture. Food is comfort. Even on Earth, a meal can calm you not because it's nutritious, but because it's familiar. Because you know how it tastes. Because you've tasted it before in safer times. So in a habitat, meals can become rituals, not just nutrition schedules, but moments of normal life, a place where people sit together, if they want, and share the day in small pieces, a place where laughter can happen simply because it can. Celebrations matter too, not big loud ones, just marks on the calendar. Birthday traditions, small holiday observances, personal anniversaries. A candle, if it's safe to have one. A song, a favourite snack, a shared story. These things may sound small, but they are how humans build time. They are how humans build home. And then there is the challenge of meaning. On Earth, meaning is supported by variety. You can have a hard day and then go watch the sunset. You can feel lost and then walk through a park. You can feel restless and then find a new street, a new cafe, a new face. The world offers many inputs that quietly refresh the mind. In a small habitat, meaning has to be nurtured more deliberately. You can't rely on constant novelty from the environment. You rely on inner novelty, creativity, learning, play. The kind of play adults forget they're allowed to have. Art becomes important. Music, writing, drawing, craft. Even if it's simple, even if it's not good in a formal sense, it gives the mind a way to breathe. Physical play matters too. Games, friendly competitions, little challenges that remind the body it can still feel joy. and connection to Earth, even from far away, can be a powerful emotional thread. Messages, videos, recorded voices, photos, not always real-time, sometimes delayed, but still real, still a bridge, still a reminder that you are part of a larger story. There's a certain tenderness in imagining a person listening to a recorded voice from Earth in a quiet habitat, while a soft fan hums in the background. The message might be about ordinary things, someone's garden, someone's pet, someone's day. And that ordinariness is exactly what makes it precious, because ordinary life is what the heart misses. When people talk about space travel, they often focus on the technical feats. But the emotional feat is continuing to be human, continuing to have friendships, humour, patience, continuing to be gentle with yourself when you feel small in a very large darkness. And that brings us to another familiar starting point: loneliness. Loneliness isn't always about being alone. You can be surrounded and still feel lonely. Loneliness is often about feeling unseen or unheld or disconnected from what makes life feel meaningful. So in long-term off-Earth living, psychological support isn't an optional extra. It's part of the habitat, even if it doesn't look like wires and panels. It can look like private check-ins, counselling, emotional education, training people not only to fix machines, but to repair relationships. It can look like teaching people how to notice stress early before it hardens into something painful. And it can look like designing for beauty. Beauty is not frivolous. Beauty calms the nervous system. Beauty gives the mind a place to rest. A small plant in a corner, a screen showing gentle scenes of Earth, a wall with colours that feel warm rather than sterile, a personal photo, a window if possible where you can see stars and feel, not fear, but awe. Awe can be calming when it's held softly. Awe reminds you that you are part of something larger, and that your worries, while real, don't have to be the only thing in the room. Imagine a small crew sometime in their quiet evening routine. The lights are dimmed into warm tones. The day's tasks are mostly complete. Someone is finishing a gentle exercise session. Someone is preparing a meal. Someone is in their own nook, reading. And throughout it all, there is the same lullaby-like hum of life support. A steady sound that says, the air is moving, the filters are working, the temperature is stable, the lantern is lit. Togetherness can exist in that ordinary moment, even without conversation. Just the feeling of sharing a space, sharing responsibility, sharing a rhythm. And if you allow a soft question to settle in your mind, it could be this: when the sky outside is always dark, what becomes your sunrise inside? Maybe sunrise becomes the gradual brightening of a lamp. Maybe sunrise becomes the smell of warm food. Maybe sunrise becomes the first message of the day from someone you care about. Maybe sunrise becomes the moment you hear another person moving in the habitat. And you remember, I'm not alone. And maybe sometimes sunrise becomes simply waking up and realizing you are still here, still breathing, still held, still capable of beginning again. If you feel yourself growing sleepy, you can let these images blur. You don't need to keep them crisp. You can let the habitat fade into soft shapes, like a dream room with gentle light. Now, there's another challenge that sits at the intersection of engineering and emotion: distance. Distance changes conversation. On Earth, we are used to immediacy. A text message can be answered quickly, a call can connect instantly. Even when you're far, the delay is usually small enough that you don't notice. But space is large and signals travel at the speed of light, which is fast, yes, but not infinite. So as you go farther from Earth, communication becomes slower. Not broken, just slower. and it can help to start with a familiar feeling again. Waiting for a reply. You've probably sent a message to someone and then waited. Maybe the waiting was easy, maybe it felt heavy. Sometimes waiting is just time passing. Sometimes it becomes a story you tell yourself. Are they upset? Are they busy? Did I say the wrong thing? That's the mind doing what minds do. Now imagine communication that is built on waiting by design. Messages that are not a live conversation, but more like letters. You send a thought into the dark and it travels. And later, another thought comes back. There is a quiet, old-fashioned sweetness to that, if you let it be sweet. It slows everything down. It requires patience. It invites care with words, because you cannot correct them instantly. It makes conversation feel like something you craft. You might picture messages traveling like slow fireflies across darkness. Small points of light carrying news, love, jokes, ordinary details, drifting patiently until they arrive. And this changes not only relationships, but decision. When you can't ask Earth for guidance instantly, you must become more autonomous, more independent. A crew or a community has to solve problems on their own. That might sound intimidating if you say it fast, but if you say it slowly, it can sound like growing up in the gentlest sense. On Earth, learning autonomy can be tender. The first time you cook a meal without a recipe, the first time you fix something in your home, the first time you handle a difficult day and realize you did it, you found your way. Autonomy is not abandonment. Autonomy is capability. So in a long-term off-Earth home, autonomy means having the skills and resources to keep life steady. Medicine, repairs, governance, education. Not in a heavy political sense tonight, just in the practical sense of how do you make decisions? How do you share responsibility? How do you teach the next person what you know? Because forever implies continuity. It implies generations, or at least long spans of time. It implies that knowledge must be carried forward gently, like a flame protected from wind. Education becomes part of life support too, not just for children if there are children, but for everyone. Constant learning, practicing, updating, keeping skills alive. Because in a small world, each person is part of the system. And as you think about that, you might notice something comforting. Humans already do this. On Earth, communities teach, families teach, friends teach, cultures teach, skills pass from hand to hand, recipes, stories, language, craft. 1,000 ways of keeping life going. Leaving Earth would intensify that, but it wouldn't invent it from scratch. It would ask us to do what we already do, just with more intention. And intention can be calming when it's grounded in routine. Autonomy can look like morning checklists. It can look like a shared schedule. It can look like a culture of asking for help early rather than waiting until something feels urgent. It can look like kindness being treated as a practical resource, not just a feeling. Because kindness reduces errors. Kindness reduces stress. Kindness makes people more willing to speak up, to share concerns, to catch problems while they're still small. Kindness is part of safety. If you're sleepy now, you can let all of this become a single, simple picture. A small home in space lit softly, where people live by gentle routines. They send messages that travel patiently, they make decisions together. They exercise, they eat, they work, they rest. They build sunrise from small ordinary acts. And now, while your mind rests inside that picture, we can widen our view a little, like slowly zooming out from a room to see the landscape around it. Because one of the most soothing ways to think about big challenges is to connect them back to everyday life, right here on Earth. When you hear about life support systems, you might think of complex machines. But you already live alongside life support in a sense, Your home has system, your city has systems, your body has systems. Think about something as simple as changing an air filter. It's quiet work, it's not glamorous, it's easiest to forget it matters, but when an air filter is clean, the air feels better. The system runs more smoothly, the home feels more comfortable. That's a gentle parallel to habitat maintenance. In an off-Earth home, filters would matter even more, seals would matter, checklists would matter, but the emotional feeling of the work could be similar to caring for a home on Earth. Small care that keeps comfort steady. There's a particular peace that can come from maintenance when you approach it without pressure, when you see it not as a burden but as tending, like watering a plant, like smoothing sheets, like preparing a space where you can rest. And the more you treat maintenance as routine, the less it carries anxiety. It becomes normal, it becomes the rhythm of living. This is one reason Forever Away is sustained by ordinary tasks done calmly day after day. Not by constant heroics, not by drama, by steady, gentle attention. And if you think about it, that's also how you sustain your own life. You drink water, you eat, you wash, you soothe, you sleep. You keep returning to the basics, sometimes a little wobbly, sometimes with grace, but always returning. So when we talk about leaving Earth, we can also talk about returning. Returning to essentials, returning to cycles, returning to care. If you want, you can take a slow breath here, as if you're marking a small pause in the night. Inhale, exhale, and let the exhale remind you that you don't have to carry everything. You're listening, that's enough. You are resting, that's the point. In the next stretch of our bedtime journey, we'll keep connecting these space challenges back to the Earth's own lessons. How ecosystems recycle and balance, how nature builds closed loops without hurry, how even tiny microbes become invisible helpers, how curiosity can be gentle, not urgent, how forever can be a direction, not a cliff. But for now, you can remain in this calm middle space, a soft habitat of words, a small cycle of breath, a quiet hum of ideas that you don't need to keep. If your eyes are closed, you can let them stay closed. If your mind is drifting, you can let it drift. You are safe, you don't need to remember, and you can let sleep come closer, the way night comes closer to the window, slowly, steadily, until it feels like the whole world has softened into dark. If you're still awake, you can let yourself arrive again gently. Notice how the bed meets you. Notice how your breath is already happening without any instructions. And if your mind is wandering, that's completely fine. Tonight doesn't require focus. You can listen the way you might listen to rain through a window, hearing it without needing to count the drops. We've been talking about what it might truly mean to leave Earth forever, not in a dramatic way, but in a quiet, practical way. The energy it takes to get away, the careful pocket of air and water you'd need to carry, the body adapting to microgravity, the art of protection, like building a good home for a different kind of weather, the mind and community creating sunrise from routine, even far from the familiar sky. And now, we can let the topic soften and widen, because one of the most calming things about science is how it connects everything. The way a small detail in a home can echo a principle of ecology, the way a simple breath can echo a planetary cycle, the way a human-made habitat floating in space can resemble something very old and very natural. So let's bring these ideas back to your everyday life for a moment, not as homework, but as comfort. Think about the quiet care that keeps your own space livable. Maybe you've changed a light bulb, wiped a counter, folded laundry, replaced a filter, swept a floor. These things aren't glamorous, and that's part of their peacefulness. They are simple maintenance, small acts that say, this place is tended, this place is safe enough to rest. In space, habitat maintenance would be more involved, but the feeling of it could be similar. You're not fighting the universe, you're simply keeping a system steady. A filter is a good example because it's both ordinary and meaningful. At home, an air filter quietly catches dust, pollen, tiny particles you don't want in your lungs. When it's clean, the air feels easier. When it's clogged, the system strains. And isn't that true emotionally too? When the mind is clogged with too much input, too many unresolved threads, everything feels harder. When the mind is cleared even a little, breathing feels easier. Rest feels possible. A space habitat works the same way, just more literally. Filters are not optional. Seals are not optional. Monitoring is not obsessive. It's simply care. There's a soft kind of dignity in that. A life sustained not by constant dramatic effort, but by small repeated acts. Check. Clean, replace, test, record, rest. If you let your eyes stay closed, you might imagine a person in a habitat doing these tasks the way you might water a plant. Calmly, automatically, without resentment, just the rhythm of living. And gardening is a wonderful bridge between Earth and space. On Earth, a garden teaches patience. You don't pull a plant taller by tugging on it. You create conditions, you give water, you give light, you give time, and you let growth happen in its own slow, stubborn way. That is the mindset of long-term living away from Earth. You can't demand an ecosystem. You cultivate one. You don't command cycles to exist. You design conditions that allow cycles to continue. Closed-loop living at its heart is an invitation to think like a gardener. Instead of asking, how do I use this once and throw it away, you ask, how do I return it to the cycle? On Earth, the away we imagine is often an illusion. You throw something away, but it doesn't vanish. It moves to another place, another system, another burden. In a habitat, away is clearly non-existent. Everything remains inside. Everything you exhale remains until it's processed. Everything you discard remains until it's recycled or stored. The loop is honest. It shows you the truth. Nothing truly disappears. It only changes form. That can sound heavy if you say it like a lecture, but you can also say it like a lullaby. Nothing truly disappears. It changes. It returns. It becomes something else. And that can be comforting because it is what night does to day, what sleep does to waking, what breath does to tension. Cooking is another gentle parallel. When you cook, you manage resources: water, heat, ingredients, time. You transform something raw into something nourishing. You clean up afterward. You prepare again. It's cyclical, routine-based, and quietly grounding. In a long-term habitat, food will be shaped by constraints, but also by creativity. You might rely on packaged food sometimes, yes, but you'd likely want fresh elements too, if you can manage them. Herbs, leafy greens, something living. Why does something as small as a leaf matter so much? Because living things change the emotional texture of a place. A plant is a slow companion, a gentle reminder that growth can happen even in limited space. A reminder that life is not only survival but also renewal. And when you picture a small plant in a space habitat, you're really picturing the beginning of an ecosystem. A tiny, careful ecosystem that must balance air, water, light, microbes, nutrients and time. Now, if we widen the lens a bit more, we can let the natural world teach us softly how such systems work. On Earth, ecosystems are steady miracles. Forests, reefs, grasslands, soils, wetlands. Each one is an enormous web of exchanges, most of them invisible. Air becomes leaf. Leaf becomes food. Food becomes motion. Motion becomes heat. Heat rises, water evaporates, water returns, and beneath the surface, in the quiet dark of soil and water, there are cycles that keep the whole thing from collapsing. You don't need to memorize the names of all these cycles. Tonight, we can just feel their rhythm. There is a carbon cycle where carbon moves through air and life and land and ocean. There is a nitrogen cycle, where nitrogen is transformed into forms living things can use, then returned again. There is a water cycle, endlessly lifting and falling. If you've ever watched a puddle disappear after rain, you've seen part of that water cycle. It looks like vanishing, but it's really just changing phase, becoming vapor, joining the air. If you've ever smelled soil after rain, that rich scent, you've encountered the living complexity of ground. The world is busy below your feet, doing quiet chemistry with patience. Designing off-world habitats is, in many ways, learning from that patience. Nature is not wasteful. Nature is not rushed. Nature is a master of reuse. What leaves one organism becomes food for another. What seems like an ending becomes a beginning. Fallen leaves become soil. Soil becomes roots. Roots become leaves again. When you imagine a long-term home away from Earth, you can imagine it adopting that same philosophy. Not in the romantic sense alone, but in the practical one. You want cycles because cycles are stability. A straight line ends, a loop continues. And that's why closed-loop systems are so central to the idea of leaving Earth forever. It's not enough to pack supplies for a long trip. Forever is longer than any pile of supplies. Forever asks for a system. It asks for a loop. Now, there's another aspect of nature that is both mysterious and deeply comforting, and it's the world of tiny invisible helpers. Microbes. The word can make some people uneasy because we often hear about germs only when something is wrong. But most microbes are not villains. Many are companions. Many are necessary. Your body right now contains countless microbes that help you digest food, train your immune system, and maintain balance. You're not a single creature alone, you're a small community. Even your skin is a landscape. Even your mouth is an ecosystem. Even your gut, deep inside, is a busy city of invisible life. And it's gentle to think about if you think about it as partnership. A quiet collaboration that has been evolving for a very long time. In soil, microbes are part of what makes fertility. They help break down material, release nutrients, sustain plant roots. In fermentation, microbes help turn milk into yogurt, cabbage into something tangy and lasting, dough into bread. They are artisans of transformation. So if you bring plants into a habitat, you also bring microbes. If you aim to grow food, you will manage soil-like substrates, nutrient solutions, microbial communities. You'll treat them carefully, because tiny imbalances matter in small systems. And here is a comforting thought. Even if humans leave Earth, we don't leave nature entirely behind. We carry nature with us in our bodies, in our biology, in our need for cycles, in our quiet microbial partnerships. Leaving Earth forever doesn't mean leaving life's old relationships. It means relocating them, tending them, and learning to keep them steady in a new setting. That's a softer story than many people expect. It's not a story of escaping nature. It's a story of bringing nature, carefully, into a smaller room. Now, if we zoom out again from the size of microbes to the size of moons and planets, we can touch another question. Why do we even dream of leaving? It's easy to assume the answer is urgency or fear or dissatisfaction, but there is another answer, one that is gentler. Curiosity. Curiosity is one of the most calm human traits when it's not frantic. It's the feeling you get when you look at the sky and wonder what's out there, not because you need to go, but because you're capable of imagining. Curiosity is the mind's way of stretching, not rushing, but stretching. A child asks why the sky's blue. A person asks what stars are made of. Someone looks at the moon and wonders what it would feel like to stand there. Someone sees a photo of a planet with rust-coloured deserts and asks, could we ever live there? These questions don't have to be urgent to be meaningful. They can be like listening to distant music. You don't have to chase it. You can simply notice it and let it make the world feel larger. And it's important to say softly and clearly that loving Earth and imagining elsewhere can coexist. You can adore oceans and forests and familiar streets and still wonder about the wider universe. Wonder does not have to be betrayal. Sometimes wonder is a form of gratitude, a recognition that the universe is expansive, that your mind is expansive too, and that both can be held without pressure. When people talk about possible places humans might live away from Earth, they often mention the Moon, or Mars, or habitats built in space itself. We can hold those ideas gently tonight, not as a promise or a prediction, but as possibilities people think about. The Moon is nearby, at least in cosmic terms. It has a day-night cycle that is different, slower, and it lacks an atmosphere like Earth's. A base there would require careful shielding and life support, and it would teach us what it means to live in a place where the sky is always black and the ground is silent. Mars is farther, with its own challenges and its own kind of beauty. It has a thin atmosphere, a cold environment, a day length similar to Earth's, and landscapes that, in photographs, can look strangely familiar, like deserts on Earth seen through a different filter. Living there would be an experiment in long-term resilience and design. Some people imagine orbital habitats, large structures that rotate to create artificial gravity, like a slow, gentle spin. This idea can sound like science fiction, but the principle is simple. If you rotate a large ring, the outer edge has a feeling of down due to centrifugal effects. It's physical, not magical, and it's an example of humans trying to bring Earth-like sensations into space, because Earth-like sensations are comforting. And then there is the most dreamy thought experiment of all, generation travel, a ship that travels so far for so long that no single person who begins the journey necessarily sees the end. This idea can feel heavy if you treat it as a plan. Tonight, we don't have to treat it as a plan. We can treat it as a meditation on time. What does it mean to build a home that is also a journey? What does it mean to live inside a story that began before you were born and will continue after you're gone? In some ways, that is already true on Earth. You were born into a world of traditions, languages, technologies, and stories you did not personally invent. You inherit, you contribute, you pass things on, you are part of a continuity that is larger than your individual timeline. A generation ship simply makes that continuity more visible. It turns it into architecture. It asks questions that are both scientific and philosophical. How do you maintain systems? How do you maintain culture? How do you maintain meaning? How do you ensure that people living inside that ship feel it is home, not a cage? How do you ensure beauty and choice and gentleness? And these questions, even if they remain hypothetical, have a soothing quality when approached slowly, because they remind us that humans are not only tool makers, humans are also meaning makers. Humans build stories the way birds build nests, with repeated small gestures, with patience, with care. Now let's return again to the word forever. It can sound like a cliff of edge, like a door closing behind you, and that can be unsettling, so it helps to reframe it softly. What if forever is not a cliff, but a direction? Not a sudden severing, but a gradual shifting of where life happens. Even if someone left Earth and never returned, Earth would still be present in them, in their chemistry, in their water. in their carbon, in the salts in their blood, in the way their lungs are shaped, in the way their nervous system calms when a light dims at night. Earth is not only a place you stand, Earth is a pattern your body carries. That's a quiet wow moment, and it doesn't need any drama. Even far away you carry Earth inside you. And perhaps in a long-term habitat, people would carry Earth in other ways too. In language, in food traditions, in songs, in the rhythm of greetings, in stories told at bedtime, even to adults, because adults also need comforting words. A person might look at a photo of Earth and feel tenderness, yes, but they might also feel steadiness, because the photo is not just nostalgia, it's a reminder of origin, a reminder that life already knows how to do this, to expand into new niches. Life began in oceans and spread to land. It found ways to endure cold and heat, wet and dry, bright and dark, always through adaptation, always through experimenting, always through cycles. If humans live away from Earth someday, it could be seen as another chapter in that long story of life exploring, not rushing, not conquering, exploring. And there is an ethical softness we can bring here too, because it matters how we imagine the future. If we ever live in new places, we can aim to do it with respect, with humility, with care, taking care of new environments, minimizing harm, avoiding thoughtless contamination, valuing cooperation over competition. These are not only moral ideals, they are practical survival strategies. Cooperation keeps communities stable. Respect prevents rash decisions. Humility reminds you to monitor and adjust, rather than assume you're in control. And even if the details of such ethics are complex, tonight we can hold the simple heart of it. Care. Care for systems, care for people, care for places, care for the future. When you hold care as the central thread, the topic becomes less tense. It becomes a story of tending rather than struggling. A story of building a lantern and keeping it lit. A story of making loops instead of burning through resources. A story of learning from forests and oceans about patience and balance. And you can let that theme wash over you now, without needing to pin it down. If your mind tries to grip it, you can loosen your grip. You can let the words be decorative like gentle patterns on wallpaper. Present, but not demanding. Let's take another quiet breath together, without counting. Inhale, exhale. And on the exhale, you might imagine the concept of forever, turning from a hard line into a soft horizon. Not something you have to reach, just something that exists, a direction you can look toward without moving. In the distance of your imagination, there is a small habitat, warm and steady. There are routines, there are cycles, there are plants perhaps, and the quiet company of microbes doing their invisible work. There are people learning how to live gently together. There is monitoring and maintenance like housekeeping for the air and water. There is calm autonomy and patient communication. And beyond that, there is the universe wide and quiet, not demanding anything from you. If you're still awake, you might notice that in a way, your bedroom is a tiny habitat too. Walls that keep weather out. A temperature that is stable enough for sleep. Air moving softly. Light dimmed. A bed that supports your body. A routine that brings you here night after night to rest. You don't have to leave Earth to appreciate the beauty of being supported. And you don't have to solve the future tonight. You can simply rest inside the idea that life is a pattern of care. Now, as we continue, the information can begin to simplify further. It can become more rhythmic, more repetitive, more like a slow rocking motion. We can take the essentials we've named and let them circle gently. Air, water, warmth, light, rest. And if sleep is near, you can allow it to come closer. You don't have to keep your attention sharp. You don't have to hold on to any particular sentence. You can let the mind drift as if it's floating in calm water, supported, buoyant, unhurried. You are you're held, and you can follow the next gentle wave of words only if you want to. You can stay exactly as you are. If you're still awake, you don't have to do anything about it. You don't have to try harder. You don't have to chase sleep. You can simply rest in the softness of this moment, letting your breath be the only rhythm you need to keep. And if you've already drifted and come back, that's fine too. You can return the way you return to the shore after floating for a while, quietly, without apology. Now, we're going to let the science become simpler and more meditative. We've explored the big idea of leaving Earth forever through layered challenges, energy, life support, bodies, protection, community, and meaning. And underneath all of it, one gentle truth keeps repeating. Life is a set of essentials, and the essentials can be named softly, like a lullaby. Air, water, warmth, light, food, rest. And tonight, you don't need to think of them as problems to solve. You can think of them as comforting constants, things that can be tended calmly whether you're on Earth or far away. So let's slow down and move through them like a gentle loop. Air first. You're breathing now. You don't need to improve it. You don't need to deepen it. Just notice that it's happening. Air comes in, cool and quiet, and leaves again. Warmer, softer, in and out. In and out. If you like, imagine air as a slow tide. Each inhale is the tide arriving. Each exhale is the tide withdrawing. The shore doesn't have to do anything. It is simply there, being touched by the rhythm. In a space habitat, air is tended. Filters hum, fans move it gently, oxygen is added steadily. Carbon dioxide is removed patiently, the air becomes something cared for like a small indoor breeze, and you can imagine that breeze now even here in your room. A subtle movement, a sense that the air is alive and circulating, keeping you comfortable. A quiet companion you can trust. Water next. Think of water not as a thing you need to track, but as a cycle that knows how to return. Rain falls, rivers run, oceans hold, clouds drift. On Earth, water is always travelling, never in a hurry. In a habitat, water becomes a loop as well. Used, collected, cleaned, returned. Like the rain cycle brought indoors, like gentle weather that never storms, only circulates, quietly. If you imagine a single droplet of water, you can let it be peaceful. The droplet does not worry about where it's going. It simply moves through forms. Liquid to vapor, vapor to liquid again. It changes, and in changing it continues, and there's a soft lesson in that. You can change states too. Waking to sleeping, tension to softness, thought to quiet, warmth. Warmth is such a comforting word. It's one of the basic languages the body understands. Warmth says you can relax. On Earth, warmth comes from sunlight, from blankets, from sheltered rooms, from shared spaces. In a habitat, warmth is managed carefully. Heat created by machines and bodies is moved around, balanced, released. Temperature becomes a kind of invisible layout, engineered like a gentle climate. But for you tonight, warmth can be very simple. It can be the warmth under your blanket, the warmth of your own skin, the warmth that builds slowly when you stop moving and let your muscles rest. If there's any part of you that feels cold or tense, you can imagine warmth arriving there like a slow, kind wave, not rushing, just arriving. Light. Light is how the body learns time. Light tells your brain morning. Light tells your brain evening. Light can energize and light can soothe. On Earth, The sky does this for you with sunrise and sunset. In a space habitat, you might recreate it with lamps that brighten and dim on schedule. A manufactured sunrise, gentle and reliable. Tonight, you're in the dim part. If there are lights in your room, you can imagine them softening even if they're already off. You can imagine darkness becoming thicker, like velvet, like deep water. Darkness doesn't have to be empty. Darkness can be protective. Darkness can be a place where the mind can stop performing. Food. You don't need to think about food in detail right now. You don't need menus. You don't need nutrition labels. You can think of food simply as nourishment, as daily kindness. In a long-term habitat, food is carefully planned. Stored, grown, prepared, shared. But in your body tonight, food has already done its work. It has become energy, warmth, repair. It has become the quiet strength in your cells. You can let your body take credit for digesting and distributing without your supervision. Rest. Rest is the reason you're here. Rest is not a task. Rest is a return. On Earth, rest is part of the planet's rhythm. Night comes, day goes. The world turns, and you can turn inward with it. In a habitat, rest would still matter just as much. Schedules would protect it. Lighting would signal it. Routine would preserve it. And for you in your bed, rest can be very simple. You're already resting. Even if you're not asleep, you're lying down. Your eyes are likely closed. Your muscles are softer than they were earlier. Your breathing is slower than it was in the busiest parts of your day. That counts. That is rest. Now we can let these essentials circle again, even more gently, with less explanation, like a slow rocking motion. Air moving in and out. Water cycling and returning. Warmth settling around you. Light dimming into night. Food already transformed into quiet strength. Rest holding you. You don't have to remember these words. You can let them become background like a soft hum. And as we repeat, we can bring back that image of the habitat as a small lantern. Picture a softly lit room drifting in space. The walls are solid, the air is clean, the temperature is comfortable, the light is warm and low. The sound is a steady hush, like a distant fan, like gentle wind through a hallway. Inside, someone is doing small routines, checking a gauge, sipping water, stretching slowly, writing a note. Not because they're afraid, but because routine is how they keep life steady. Routine is how they build peace, and in that sense they are doing something very similar to what you are doing right now. You're building peace through repetition. Breath again and again, stillness again and again, letting the night be what it is. If your mind wanders to Earth, you can hold Earth as a blue memory. Calm, steady, not lost, just distant in imagination, like a lullaby from another room. Earth turning slowly, oceans glittering faintly, clouds curling and uncurling. A planet doing its quiet work even while you sleep, and if you imagine distance, you can make it gentle. Distance does not have to mean loneliness. Distance can be quiet. Distance can be spacious. Distance can be a kind of openness where the mind has room to soften. If any anxious thoughts appear, you can let them drift like slow satellites. They pass by, they reflect a little light. They keep moving. You don't have to follow them. What if safety can be designed gently? What if patience is a kind of gravity holding you to rest? You don't have to answer those questions. They can remain as soft shapes in the dark. Now we'll simplify even further, letting the language become more rhythmic, more repetitive, as if the words themselves are slowing down. Inhale, exhale, air in, air out, warmth around you, the bed beneath you, the night above you, The mind softening, the body a heavy. Air, water, warmth, light, rest. Air, water, warmth, light, rest. Each word like a small pebble dropped into calm water, making a gentle ring that expands then fades. And if sleep comes now, you can let it take you. If it doesn't come yet, you can still rest, still soften, still drift. You are safe, you are allowed to be tired, you're allowed to let go. And as we come toward the end of this long, quiet exploration, we can gather the whole topic into one calm summary, like folding a blanket neatly without needing perfection. Leaving Earth forever means rebuilding Earth's quiet gifts, breathable air, clean water, protection, routine, community, meaning, not with drama but with care. Careful design, careful brief habits, careful kindness, and you don't need to carry any of that on your shoulders. It's simply a story of how life continues when it is tended. For you tonight, the tending can be very small. A softer jaw, a longer exhale, a heavier shoulder, a mind that doesn't have to solve anything. If you want, you can take one more slow breath, as if you're smoothing the last wrinkle from the day. Inhale and exhale, long and easy, letting the room feel even quieter. Now, let the science fade like starlight in the morning. Let the images dissolve into darkness. Let the words become less interesting, less sharp, more like a distant ocean you can barely hear. You don't need to hold on to any sentence. You don't need to stay with me. You can drift away whenever you like. And if you're already halfway asleep, you can simply keep going. Deeper, softer, quieter. Earth turns slowly. Your breath moves slowly. The night holds you. Good night, just gently without an ending that snaps. Good night as the room grows still. Good night as the mind releases. Good night as everything fades into soft silence. And you are held comfortably by gravity and by rest.